Welcome to the All Booked podcast, where librarians Ashley, Justin, Brittin, and Rosa talk about what they're reading and adding to each other's TBR list.
Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the All Booked podcast. We are your All Book Club librarians. What are words? I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there. This podcast will drop April 2nd, Season 5, Episode 7, and today Brittin is going to kick us off.
Yes. Okay, so mine is technically an adult book, but it definitely has some crossover appeal. And an 18-year-old protagonist as well. So it's Allison Gaylin's We Are Watching. And this is a really bizarre thriller. We've got 3 points of view. Meg is probably our primary point of view. We also get her father, Nathan, and her daughter, Lily. And Nathan was in a band. They are kind of a one-hit wonder. Their song, Pearly Gates, is weirdly popular. And part of his shtick was like he dressed as a warlock and he would, throw up devil's horns and stuff and, all crazy. And prior to the beginning of the book, Meg, when she was like 12, I think, won a young writers contest and got her book published as part of this. But, this was years ago. She doesn't even mention it to her daughter, Lily. So our book starts with Meg and her husband taking Lily to college. And as they're driving, there's a car that it has, she calls them skinheads, but I guess sort of teenager young men who've shaved their heads who are filming them. And also, they try speeding up, they try losing them, they get in front of them. Eventually, Meg is so freaked out by this that she loses control of the car, and her husband is killed in the crash. Then we pick up a few months later. Lily has deferred going to school. She and Meg are back in their hometown, and they're getting ready to reopen the bookstore that they own, and that's where they make their livelihood. And when they do, they start there's people coming in, there's people from across the street filming them, people coming in that they think are taking pictures of books to go order online and all these weird things. Then they start finding weird posts, really bizarre stuff happening, okay? So we have references in the things they're finding online to both Nathan and his song Pearly Gates, and to Meg's previous book, which was a young adult book. She was, I think, 12 when she wrote it. It was a young adult book that's basically apocalyptic. And in her story, the world is sort of coming to an end. There's fires, there's floods, there's plagues. And the 10-fingered and 10-toed are, the world is going to end for them in the year of the twos. But our young heroine needs to kill the demon who I believe in the book is her father in order to save the world, right? Okay, so did you follow all that? This is just the setup. I mean, we're not there.
I got it.
All right, so they start finding, there's this 4chan-esque website. It's a whole doomsday cult.
Oh,
These people who believe...
This makes so much sense now.
Yeah. So they believe that Nathan's song, Pearly Gates, which in the recording for the song, he counts in 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2. And then there's references to the pearly gates of heaven.
Which is not uncommon as a count-in.
But, in Meg's book, where the end of the world is happening, where you've got global climate change, essentially, and COVID has happened, which, P.S., she predicted a plague, and she talks about the year of twos. That's when everything's going to end. So these conspiracy theorists have decided that the world is ending on 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, because that's what he counted in, and that Nathan, Meg, and Lily need to die violent deaths, preferably with Lily killing. Totally. Because they're 10-fingered and 10-toed, people chop off their finger, so they're no longer 10-fingered and 10-toed. That makes them safe.
I mean,
Right?
that tracks. It makes sense. How do you protect yourself otherwise?
That's one of the ways. But it's really, I found it really cool, bizarre and twisty. Nathan has been paranoid forever, and they've all been like, oh my God, Dad is so paranoid.
Yeah.
Well, come to find out, he's got good reason. And he's showing her hate mail. He's showing his daughter hate mail. And she's like, it's just a few crazies. And he pulls out like wardrobe boxes full of these letters. Like, it's not a few.
Wow.
So it was really fun, very twisty, very,
A lot happens in a not very long book.
current. Yeah. Kind of current with some of the, COVID obviously is in there. And then this whole online conspiracy theory that really creates its whole life. And these poor people who are the victims, not Nathan because he's aware, but Meg and Lily are like, what are you talking about? So I really enjoyed it. There's some points where you kind of have to suspend disbelief, but that's fairly common in this. So
Cool.
yeah.
Wow.
We are watching. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Britt.
It's the second time that I've heard like the explanation of the book. Every time I'm like, oh my God,
I know.
there's a lot going on in
There
that
is a
book.
lot going on. I didn't even go into No.
It's like 250 pages.
Yeah. There's others I didn't want to talk for the whole, podcast. There's more I can say.
Oh, geez.
So,
Well, I guess it's on to my not so short book.
but with also lots going on.
Oh man, and that I don't even know why I took notes. I'm not going to look at them. There's so much happening in this book. So this is another book that I would not give to a teenager, possibly a new adult.
New
I would
adult.
say.
Okay.
This is Grady Hendrix's Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Grady Hendrix, I've read most of his books. This one might be in competition for one of my favorites. Ooh. Yep. So I will say, when I first started reading this, I Google searched if I should be reading it because I am pregnant, and it is a book about pregnancy.
I believe I texted you saying,
did.
beware.
So I got several warnings from people being like, I don't know if you should read this. So I'm pregnant with my second kid, and I feel like that makes a big difference because I kind of know what to expect now. Right. If I was going into it blind, man, this would not have been the book for me. There's a lot of body horror, I guess you could say, and just kind of like antiquated medical techniques and things that they don't do so much anymore that are really disturbing. But the premise of this book is we have Neva Craven, who is our main character. She is 15, pregnant, and living in the South in the 1970s. So, a fate worse than death for poor Neva.
Wow.
So, it's a bad situation. So she finds herself being taken by force into the Wellwood house, which is a home for unwed mothers. The premise, and these homes existed, like they were an actual thing. And it turns out that Grady Hendrix actually had a family member who was a resident at one of these, which encouraged him to write this story. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But so the Wellwood house is filled with women varying in ages from like 13 to 18 or 17 because they're all underage. So Neva becomes Flora, right?
I don't know.
Fern.
Sorry, Fern.
I'm like, I don't know.
They all get flower
They all get
or
flower
plant
names because Mrs. Wellwood, they're her garden of children,
I
so
see.
she gives them all flower names. So her name is Fern. So Fern becomes friendly with Rose, who's like a revolutionary. Rose is awesome. And at first I didn't like Rose, but then I was like, no, Rose is pretty cool. Zinnia, who is... if you have Rose, who's one way, you have Zinnia, who's the opposite way. Like and Fern finds a balance between the two. Like Rose is the crazy revolutionary, like do whatever it takes, and Zinnia's like, let's pause a minute and think about this. And she kind of makes her decisions based on the both of them. And then we have poor tragic Holly. Holly is freshly 14 and very pregnant. And this is to me, this is where the actual horror comes in.
Yeah.
Because sorry. the actual horror of this is not necessarily like the paranormal stuff that comes into play. So Holly was impregnated by her minister, and with the assumption that he is going to adopt her baby. So that's the true horror, and it's devastating. Yeah, you can let that breath come out.
For everybody who's not watching, all our faces are just cringing right now.
I feel like Hendrix handles this really, like he doesn't handle it lightly. Like it's very clear that Holly is the reason why they do all the things that they do. They're all in this position. They all go to this house because the intention is to have their baby, give their baby away, and then go home and act like nothing ever happened. That's not necessarily as easy as it's billed to them, because when you actually have the baby, every single one of them is devastated by the fact that the baby's being taken away. So it's a hard one to read through. It truly is. Because I was very emotional with Rose when they took her baby away, because they said she couldn't be of sound mind to make the decision to get rid of her baby, so they took her baby away. It ends well. It does end well, but it's tragic. It's horrifying. But so anyway, Rose, Zinnia, and Fern all decide that they have to do something to help Holly. She can't go back to her life. So there's a bookmobile that comes every 2 weeks or so with a librarian, Mrs. Parse. Mrs. Parse hands out books to all of the girls. All of them are like Stuart Little. Like they're all meant to kind of dumb down the girls. If they want to read like In Cold Blood or anything that's of like literary value, it doesn't get approved by the house. So they're taking out like children's books basically. And Fern is talking to Mrs. Parse, and Miss Parse kind of senses something different in Fern. So she gives Fern a book that is How to Be a Groovy Witch.
A groovy witch.
Groovy witch, 1970s.
It is the 70s, yeah.
So she doesn't think anything of it, but she realized, like when she opens the book, it's in a language that she doesn't understand. And then the more she reads it, she starts to understand what's the words. Like the language starts to make sense to her. So basically, it is her, like, the Coven's book. It's one of a kind. It has all spells.
It's a grimoire.
So yeah. So she and all of her friends try it out. They say, "All right, let's see what this thing can do," and they cast a spell on the one doctor, who plays off all of their like pregnancy symptoms as it's in your head. It's in your head.
Oh, and what are they allowed to gain? It's like 8 pounds or something. You're allowed to gain.
You're not allowed
in your whole
salt. You're not allowed sugar. You're not allowed anything. Like they're on restricted diets. And the one Zinnia has like severe morning sickness. She's sick all the time. So they curse the doctor with her morning sickness to show that it's not in my head. And like I see Olivia like rooting it on. And you have that so many times in this book. You're like, yeah, finally. And they do use witchcraft to get back at the people who have wronged them. Wow. That's the whole point of it. But for everything that you get, you have to give something. So there is a price to pay. And as the story progresses and as you start to realize like the ramifications of being a witch and that it's not all good and that the payment could be more than Fern might be willing to give. It is, like I said, I loved every second of it. I know I got a lot of feedback from people saying that it was too slow. I didn't get that. I thought it was pretty well paced, but it is a long book. It's about 500 pages. And there's a lot of stuff in there that makes you like, okay, I got to get through this. Like, we got to keep going. But I think it ends pretty well. And then Brittin and I were talking a little bit before about how we feel about a male author writing about very female experiences. In his afterword, he does apologize and say that he hopes that he didn't sell it short. I didn't think so. I thought that it was really well written. And his history, most of his protagonists are female. So I'm not surprised that he wrote something like this. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it.
Cool. Exactly. Mary. All right, I am up. Everybody ready for this one? Because Justin's going to say something extreme.
Uh-oh.
No notes.
Okay.
No notes.
Libba Bray. Oh,
Yeah.
Libba Bray came, ate, and left no crumbs with this book.
Yeah.
It was the best book I've read so far this year, hands down. So let me tell you.
All of our books are complicated.
I'm sorry.
That's why
Yeah,
I don't know.
okay.
I'm not sure about Rosa's, but so
Mine
far.
isn't actually.
So I'm definitely going to say that every librarian or teacher should have a copy of this in their collection. It is definitely something you need to have on your shelves. With that being said, let me introduce you to these amazing characters. So we start off, there's 3 points of view. The first point of view we have is in the 1940s, Kleinwald, which doesn't exist, in Germany. It's Sophie and her best friend Hannah. And it's basically their friendship story. It is about their everyday life as the loom of World War II is coming closer to their homes. And it's just about them keeping to their innocence and kind of finding a home in each other. And I'm tearing up because they were my favorite characters by far. So they have this bridegroom's oak tree that they love. And apparently, when you write letters to this tree, the love of your life will answer back. And there's so many things that just brings them back to this tree. You find out that that Sophie is just this little bookworm who just devours everything and just makes up these beautiful stories. And Hannah is her best friend who just kind of is getting involved in things that is way above Sophie.
Like adult stuff.
Adult stuff, exactly.
Yeah.
Things that like Sophie's not ready to face just yet. And they're holding on so tight to just kind of that innocence that they had as girls, just playing by their tree and pretending that there's true love and like there's princes. So we keep going back and forth to their POVs. Next perspective we get is Jenny. It's the 1980s, and her family has just uprooted her from Texas to West Germany. And this is like punk rock era. This is that wall in East Germany is there. And Jenny is just stifled. She hates her parents. Long story short, they just don't get her. And she finds herself in a crowd with Lena, with a girl named Lena. And oh my, Lena, oh my. She's just such a punk rocker, fascist fighter. And she just wants to tear down all the walls, and you find out why she is so hell-bent on bringing down the system. And Jenny just gets so wrapped up in her that she is finding ways to kind of sneak around and join her punk band, and you know, it's all really cool. And then the third perspective is 2020, New York City with Miles and Chloe. And it is the era of the pandemic, folks. Like, they are stuck. And this is where the story kind of brings it back to 1940. Chloe gets a package from her mormor, and her mormor is her grandma. And basically, it's tape recordings of folk tales and stories that she has recorded for her, and a picture of 2 identified girls that you find out is Hannah and Sophie. And newspaper clippings that they're missing, and they can't find them. So Miles and Chloe just kind of find it on themselves, because they love solving mysteries, they love things like that, to find out what happened to these 2 girls. So 3 timeline. You would think the pacing would be ridiculous. It is not. Every single chapter, every point of view, you are so engrossed. I think I felt like the strongest were definitely Hannah's and Sophie's, and I love Jenny's. Miles and Chloe's were I think I was too close.
Yeah.
I think I was too close to like the COVID and like what they were talking about, that I was just like, ugh, get to the good part. But even their parts got good. Like even their parts connected, and that's what I loved about this book. Libba Bray just has an incredible way of connecting like all these characters together. All the minor characters even have so much life and character development that like I literally texted all of you and I was just like, what? Like, wow. My mind was blown when it was so seamless. Like everything shocked me. And there was a moment at the end where it just, something happens that I literally stared at the wall for like 5 minutes. I'm like, I need to process this because this was amazing to me. But again, I think the book had so much to say, and it wasn't that long, but all of the characters just were so well-rounded, and all of them had to it's very rare that you find all three characters with something to prove, and all three of them found a way to kind of, make a statement about their time and what was happening. And I think that is what's so beautiful about Libba Bray. Like, she just has this ability to comment on current things that are happening in the world and how to like show like this happened during this time, this happened during this time, and this happened during that time. They're all the same age at that point. Miles was the same age as Sophie was, and she just kept bringing that back. Like, no matter how old you are, you're never too young or too old to recognize like what is happening in front of your faces. And even at its scariest, even, Miles like debating whether he should go to a rally, even though it's like, you have to wear face mask. And his mom was like, she's in the battlefields, like fighting COVID, like, cause she's a nurse. Like, there's so many things that are running through your head. You're like, would I ever do this? Would I ever find courage to do something like this? And all of these characters found a way to kind of show their courage. Guys, I'm not even joking. I will give everybody in this room my copy if you want it. It was so well done.
Well, you bought it.
No notes. There's no plot holes, nothing. I loved it.
I knew Justin loved it when she was like, I bought a copy. All right. We know it's good.
It's a trophy. It's a trophy copy because, oh my God.
Yeah.
It is.
Under the
Thank
Same
you.
Stars.
It is Under the Same Stars by
Yes,
Libba
this
Bray. I
one.
apologize.
This one.
Sorry, folks. I got into it before I even had a chance to introduce it.
You kept
couldn't
them on
wait.
edge the
I couldn't
whole
wait.
time.
It was
So
just
good.
waiting for
It was so
It's so
good.
good.
All right, I'll turn it over to Rosa.
I would have raved about that too because it was mind blowing. And like, I was actually lucky enough to meet Libba Bray for her launch event. And she was so freaking cool.
Did you just
I was
bow
so
down to her
starstruck.
greatness?
And she looked at me, she's like, hi, Rosa. I'm like, what? And I was just like, please sign all my copies. I had 3 bags of books for her to sign. I was like, I'm so sorry. I just need your name on these. I'm so sorry. Because I have like 3 editions of the Diviners. And then
So good.
yeah, even like King of Crows, which came out in 2020, she was commenting on like 2016 to 2020 around that point, and like you reread it, it's like it's still relevant, and this one's still relevant like now. So I'm just like, yeah, it's no wonder it took her like 4 years to finish this. Cause, like,
It is a masterpiece.
yeah, it's and like all the 3 like timelines just like came together so beautifully in the end, and like
When'd you find out?
yeah.
Strap in. Amazing.
Yeah, I will lend my copy too if like.
But it's mine. No way. Don't take it.
I am so
I have a
jealous
toddler and
right
2
now.
dogs at home. No shame.
You can have mine. It's not signed.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't rave about this anymore because I have also Miles is half Filipino.
Yes.
So I was like a Pinoy rep from
Yes,
Libba Bray, and then she
yes.
was just like she mentioned adobo, and I was like, oh my God, I'm hungry.
Oh man.
But yeah. Anyway, that wasn't my book to talk about.
She just had to add to it because it was that good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
But so mine is actually really, really lighthearted and not like complicated
Good.
at all.
We kind of need that this time.
I
So-
see your notes though.
yeah.
Jeez.
My goodness.
This one isn't coming out until the 24th of April, and I don't think it's coming out in the U.S.
Oh really?
Wow.
Because this is a spin-off of the Twin Crowns series, which I talked about like 2 years ago, I think. Basically, it takes like a side character and like he has his own story here. So you don't actually have to read the trilogy to get into this. It's a standalone spin-off. So this one is about a seafarer. He loves the sea. He's like this guy who just has like this ability to like navigate the waves. Like he has a bit of magic, but he doesn't really like, it's not his like story. So his sister, who is a seer, gets sick and he has to voyage around to find the cure. And a storm basically destroys his ship and scatters his crew. And if you like The Little Mermaid, we have a mermaid protagonist here too. So we have Marino, the captain, and then we have Kira, the mermaid, who has this curiosity about humans, even though her sisters tell her, don't interact with the humans.
Now I've got the song stuck in my head. What do you call it?
Exactly. She like Ariel, she likes to collect things about humans and she likes to like observe them from afar. She's very curious. So she finds him and like Ariel, she's very, very intrigued. And when the storm, like, which her sisters who have like storm powers cause, basically destroys the ship, she saves him. And he, like Eric, he wakes up and then she has to leave. And yeah.
Does she leave behind a silver slipper or something? Or
No,
is it a flipper?
but he
Or-
just remembers her.
Disney
He's like, who
princesses.
is this really gorgeous lady who just like rescued me from like the middle of the sea?
Sing it,
legs.
Justin. Sing
I
it.
want to be.
Where the people are. So while he's on land, he finds out that there's this like rumored plant that has healing properties called the liffen flower, but he needs help to find it because it's just, you know, a legend. And while he's searching, he meets this very sweet baker. She owns a bakery, and he finds himself falling for her, but he's still also drawn to the mermaid.
Oh boy.
So she has to like help him find the liffen flower because the king of the island, who doesn't let anybody leave, wants the liffen flower. So he can also like he's like, if you can find me this magical flower, I will let you leave, just you. But
Wow.
yeah. So he's torn between these two potential interests, and he has to find this flower. And time is running out because his sister's condition is deteriorating by the day. So that's Captain of Fates by Katherine Weber, one of the authors of the Twin Crown series. And this one's extra special to me because during my this is an ARC, and the author has told me that she had based one of the characters on me.
Oh.
Stop it.
Yeah, she was like, "Yeah, you're in it." I'm like, "What?"
Do you like the character that you are?
yes.
Okay,
I was
good.
about
Oh,
to say.
good.
Thank goodness.
Good.
Yeah.
Did you recognize yourself?
No. I was like, "Oh my gosh."
That's
yeah,
cool.
she made me tall in this. So I was very grateful. But this one's it's very fun. It's something, I would say there's a very summery read, like a beach read. I feel like Pirates of the Caribbean. I feel like
Little Mermaid.
Little Mermaid. Oh my God, the Disney vibes in this, like Renaissance Disney, is very strong. And and
I mean, it's got the flower from
Is it
Rapunzel.
gonna come out? You
Yes.
Same thing.
no.
Ah.
If it does well, like if people buy like overseas, like a copy from like the UK, then they might consider selling it here. But
Come on.
yeah, I'm so sad because it's so much fun. Yeah, and the characters are actually for like a standalone, like and a 3 point of view story.
The 3
I
point
know.
of view.
Yeah.
That's a theme.
They were pretty well developed, and there's that crazy twist in the end
Yeah.
that just like made me go like, I put it down and I like message her. I'm like, what did you just do?
Wow.
So yeah, I recommend this as like a summer read.
All right.
Excellent.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's turn to tables. What our topic for today is: what is the best way to get out of a reading slump? Now, mind you, everybody, I was in a terrible reading slump before I got my hands on Under the Stars. Now I don't know how to move on with my life. So anybody who wants to tell me how they get out of the reading slump, please let me know, because I'm going to compare every book I read to this one. By the way, I forgot to mention this earlier. There are parts of Under the Same Stars. It's 3 points of views, but there's the recordings that add just chef's kiss.
If you
level.
listen to the audiobook, it sounds like
it's
a
amazing.
recording.
Oh, it's
cool.
amazing.
It's really cinematic.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. Sorry to go back.
Anyway.
But
No.
all right, Bray, it looks like you have some suggestions.
I have some notes. I was also in a reading slump. So my first tactic is to change genres or formats.
Yeah.
Like if you're not an audiobook, for me, I am an audiobook person. So I went looking for a book, a physical paper and ink book, or changing genres. I am not typically a big fantasy reader, and something switching to more fantasy maybe, or switching to nonfiction, something just to change it up a bit. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't work, my next step is to look for either a classic or a book that was like the book last year or the year before, or, that I never read.
Okay.
So, I've never read The Women, or, I don't know, I'm trying to think of one, Lincoln Highway, something, that everybody raved about. So you kind of...
Maybe I'll do that. I might do
right?
that.
Or a classic,
Yeah.
And then my last trick, if it comes to this, is rereading a favorite.
Yeah.
And it can be like, let me reread one that I loved when I was 20, or it can be rereading The House in the Cerulean Sea, because I need, and that for me, that's like a comfort read. That's getting in your jammies and getting, a cup of tea and a blanket and visiting with friends.
Right.
So it's just a way to,
I do consider them my friends too. Isn't
right?
that funny? Like, I'm just
Right? Talia's the best, I
what are
think.
they doing over there?
TJ Klune just came out with another one.
He did. I read that one. It was good.
Was it?
Yeah.
Jeez.
I
You
know.
just have time.
She just has so much
I
time. What is that
managed
like?
to get the audiobook on that
Oh,
one like
okay.
right away.
Yeah.
So I got it from I think Libby, and
Nice.
I didn't have to
In
wait.
my mind, it came out yesterday. So you're like, oh yeah, I read it.
It wasn't yesterday,
No, I
but
know.
yeah, it's not a House in the Cerulean Sea. It
No.
has a similar sort of a found family, but I didn't have any. What do
What's
I
it
want
called?
to say? What is it called?
That's not what it's
Sorry.
called. Hold on.
Yeah, Olivia's on it. I can't remember what it's called. But that's definitely older. Like I think House in the Cerulean Sea we've recommended
Lives of
for
Puppets?
teens.
No.
Bones
Yes. Bones
Beneath My Skin.
That's right.
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It has kind of Stranger Things
Ooh.
feel to it in some ways.
Okay.
So I actually thought about talking about it here, but I wouldn't give it to a teenager, I don't think.
No.
So
All right.
See, I have a harder time with like the reading slump usually comes right after like a book hangover.
right.
'Cause
Well,
I
the
have-
book hangover
Because I
is
have that
a
with this
different-
one.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I really enjoyed this one.
Right.
I
And
liked
that's
the
what
setting.
Justin's
I liked.
Yes.
talking about.
So I feel like now I have a whole stack of stuff I need to read, and I'm like, I'm not
Right.
going to get the same feeling that I
Right.
had.
Well, that I think is a big thing too when you're trying to get out of a slump is, we all have these huge TBRs, this
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be read, like the pile of books literally, or just the want to read.
lined up.
And I think sometimes just going totally off and
Yeah,
picking
picking
something
a
brand new,
random.
like
Yeah.
the TJ Klune. I was like, oh, look at this. I like
Yeah.
this author. Let me read this.
Yeah, I'll usually do a graphic novel as a palate cleanser
That's
because
a
they're
good
short
one.
and you can keep going.
That's an excellent idea.
And there's so much out there. There's a lot, and you can finish it in an hour or two, and you feel refreshed and you escape for a little bit. So I like the graphic novel approach. But I am a firm believer in if it's not good, don't read it.
Yeah.
Stop.
Right.
I'm
I
a fan of the DNF. Did not finish. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I have that in my notes that libraries are the key to getting out of a reading slump because you can check out 10 books, read 10 minutes of each book and go, nope, need something else.
Yeah. No.
You know, and you haven't really, I mean, maybe a trip to the library is all that's really been spent. It's not money.
Sponsored
I
by the
agree,
Richmond
though.
Public Library.
But I totally agree, Ashley. Like, don't, especially if you're in a slump.
Yeah.
I have my time is very limited.
Yeah.
So if I am not hooked by the first like 25 pages, I'm
Right.
not. Or if I find something wrong in the first 25 pages,
Justin gave up on a book because there's a typo in it, and I totally missed the typo. She had to point it out to me. I was like, oh yeah, there
it's
is.
just something that it's an innate.
You father.
You father.
You father.
You father.
You know, it does. It pulls you out of the story.
Yes.
It
Yes.
does,
It
and you're
really
like,
does.
no. I get that. I
And
do.
I had so much high hopes for the book too, because again, like I love fantasy. I love that taking out of like a different world kind of deal, but you father just ruined it. Sorry.
No, it's tough. I feel like sometimes if you're like, I really enjoyed this. It took me a long time to read this one, and now I feel like yesterday I read like 200 pages, and now I'm like, all right, the next one, and I feel like I'm not gonna find it. Yeah. But it does help, and honestly, like
Take up Libba Bray.
that's
Under
my
the same
plan.
stars.
Yeah. But like listening to stuff like this, scrolling through like Book Talk and seeing people who are hyped up about just reading in general also kind of gets me back into a reading mood.
Yeah.
I
do that too. Like I kind of troll like a lot of like what are all the youths reading?
Yeah.
And I try one of those books and I'm like, ugh, they could be
when you find something better.
Yeah, I was like, now I can find something better.
That's for me quite often jumping to a middle grade book.
Really?
Yeah, like I've had enough with adult and teen, and so let me pull out this. I read Will's Race for Home, which is Jewel Parker Rhodes. Parker Rhodes. Sorry, please forgive me.
I want to say Parker Road.
I think so. And it was great. And it's not always going to be a happy ending, but I do feel like when you're reading middle grade books, you have some, you have less of the angst and
That's true.
There's lots of talking animals too, which I'm not a big
this
fan
one,
of.
the animals don't talk, but he talks to them.
Oh, okay.
His mule is his favorite, his best friend.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's cool.
I also to go back on something that like a favorite or something. I always have something backed up on like my Kindle.
Yeah.
That if I'm reading something like this that I just can't get into, my Kindle's always on me. So if I didn't bring the big book that I'm reading, I'll just take that. And I'm like halfway through random stuff, but I've read it before.
Right.
It happens to be The Shining, but
I go back to Stephen King too. I'm reading Misery now.
it's insane to me. It's such a weird like comfort read. I don't know why, because it's not comfortable.
No,
but
it's
like
not.
I think that something
I think it's a
about-
release.
I think so, and I think it's also like I know what happens, and
Right.
you
That
can
helps.
anticipate like when the jump scares are going to happen.
Right.
But I do think there's something, I don't know. It's maybe comfort read is not the right term for especially like a Stephen King. But there is something like for me when I think of summer, I always think of it, and I don't know like because it happens in summer,
Right.
But I'll like every time like June starts, I'm like I could reread it.
Just watch the
I could do
movie.
that. Yeah, you know. But it's just and same thing once we get into the winter, I'm like it's time for The Shining. Like they're just he's like my fallback, always
And
on
I
my
think
Kindle.
the King or horror books, excuse me, I'm having trouble with words today too. I think they're very cathartic.
Yeah.
So it's not a feel-good book.
No.
But in many ways you get to kind of wallow in that anxiety
And know that you're safe.
and know that you're safe and get it out of your system.
Yeah, no, that's why. And I'll go back to Grady Hendrix. He is kind of like a dark comedy writer. At least he started that way. Because there's not so much in this one, but in other ones, there's always like comedic relief, and there's always something that's so outrageous, so ridiculous that you're like, oh man, like my best friend's exorcism. That was a ridiculous ridiculous story. It's absolutely ridiculous, but you couldn't help but be like, all right, I see what he's doing here.
Yeah.
You know, and for that, it's the same like horror relief, but you also get a little bit of the lightheartedness too in there. But different strokes, because not everybody's like, I can't imagine Justin being like, I'm in the mood for a lighthearted read. Let me pick up my best friend's exorcism.
Let me pick up it. No, definitely
That's
not.
a quick read too.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not my jam.
No.
I normally, like with you, I'll pick up a manga before I pick up something horror.
No, that's fair.
But yeah, no.
Yeah, I think mine tends to overlap with like the rereading, old favorites. And what I do actually, one of my strategies is I listen to podcasts about books, and actually all the ones I listen to are like horror. So yeah, so and it's nice because like they usually get the author on to talk about like their book to promote it, and then they talk about like their process and what they intended, and I'm just like, okay, that sounds interesting. That's how I got into Victor Laval. And the other one, I actually stumbled on this by accident, but I rewatch or watch like movie or show adaptations of books I like, and then I get mad.
And then you have to read it.
And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back and read it because like this is not how it went.
That just happened to me with It and Midnight in the Garden, Good and Evil. I watched the movie and I was like, wait a minute. Like, did that happen?
Yeah, that one's fun because like it's fun if you're watching with somebody and then you're like, that's not how it happened. You know what? This is actually what happened. And they'll be like, you know what? Just read the book.
Yeah. My husband can't stand that. He's like, I know it's not the same as the book. You say it every time.
Yeah.
He loves watching movies with me.
Point out all the inaccuracies.
You would hate watching movies with me and my husband because like we both have different categories of like nerdery. So like if I'm watching like anything in the Renaissance era, I'm like complaining, okay, why are they not wearing French hoods? This is ridiculous. And he's like, yeah. And then we're watching like anything like ancient Rome or Napoleonic. It's like, that's not how it happens. See, like the phalanx doesn't work like that. And I'm just like, okay. So yeah.
To be a fly on the wall in your house to listen to your conversations, Rosa.
Yeah, they will just have to. Like,
oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. That's so great. That's amazing. All right. Well, hopefully you've stuck along this entire recording. We did
And you can get out of your reading slump now.
I have to. Now every book is just going to be up against Under the Same Stars. And I don't think it's going to. I'm going to say this now, and this might be controversial, but I think it needs to win. It needs to win. It's March.
What is it up for?
Just everything. I think it just needs to win. In my
It's for the Justin Award.
It's been a while since I've picked up a book, and I've felt like every inch
Has
of
she
my body.
won the Prince before or just honor?
For Going Bovine.
Yes.
I think.
It was the Prince.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. I haven't. All I've read of hers is Beauty Queens.
So
Which-
good.
The audio on that,
It's
and she
so
reads
good.
the audio.
It's
so,
so
good.
I just
I've read
love Libba
nothing.
Bray.
I love when she does Miss Texas.
Not a
It's
one.
so good.
And you know what? Even
Even
the
the
Great and
cover of
Terrible
Beauty
Beauty was a great. Like I thought that was fun too.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
or the
I will say like when she signed my my copy of Sweetfire thing, all she put was like, "I'm sorry for page 726." And I was like, I know.
All right, now I'm gonna have to look into this.
Before we wrap, can I ask
Yeah.
a Libba Bray question?
Sure.
If I've never read Libba Bray before, is this a good intro, or will this ruin all of her other books for me?
Oh.
Okay, you got to start with the Great and Terrible Beauty.
I feel like you need to start with you need to warm up to Libba Bray to understand her style, because if you jump right into like the diviners, you're gonna be like, oh.
They also like there's like a sort of ending of A Great and Terrible Beauty in the Diviners.
Yeah.
Because A Great and Terrible Beauty ends in a way that's just like, WTF is this?
Yeah.
That's not a good way to start, though.
But like,
Yeah.
But I love
heartbreaking
Beauty
way.
Queens.
Yeah.
That's totally different.
If you wanted just something light, definitely Beauty Queens.
Yes.
It will not disappoint.
it's
Like,
very amusing.
it's so good.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I probably
And
will
if you
just
can
read
get
that.
like the audiobook versions,
Yes.
try, because the audiobook version of Great and Terrible Beauty is actually pretty good. It's just very British. And then you get like the Diviners, which she does
So
all the
amazing.
voices, and it's like a movie.
I still hear
literally.
Naughty Jack in my
Yes.
head sometimes.
I can still hear.
Have you read any?
Bill.
Ashley?
I've read nothing. So
Ashley
I'm an
and
outcast
Olivia
in this
need-
little conversation.
Get
I
on
know.
the Libba Bray
Right.
Get on the
bandwagon.
boat.
Beauty Queens is it's a plane goes down that's got all these beauty queens going to an island. And the plane goes down,
amazing.
and it's, now we're
like
Gilligan's
Lord of the
Island.
Flies.
Right, Lord of the
Yeah.
Flies.
Meets
See, but I read
Beauty
Lord of the
contestants.
Fly Fest, and that was the Moldova.
Moldova.
Is that the one with the Fire Festival?
Yeah,
ish?
yeah. So
this one's
as soon
different.
as okay,
Yeah.
because that one was a bit much. But this, I'd give it a shot. I
It's a
listened
bit much,
to it,
too.
though. That's all right.
Beauty
I don't
Queens
mind.
is like pure parody. Like think Mel Brooks
Yes.
level.
That's
of,
fine.
like,
I like
insanity.
that.
Yeah.
No, I feel like Firefest was, or the whatever it was, that one was trying too hard to be a parody, but also be like a horror. I'm like, what are you doing here? Pick a lane,
Pick one.
lady. So.
You got to give it that to Libba Bray, though. She does.
Yeah.
She writes the hell out of these characters. And you honestly.
And her language is gorgeous, and you can tell because she's a playwright. She actually in her launch event she said she just finished a musical and she's recording. So I'm just like, what is this musical? It sounds badass. So like, yeah.
she says a lot without saying too much. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you get it. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
And her humor is spot on. It's never dated, which is like her sarcasm is just off the charts.
We're big Libba Bray fans in this household.
Couldn't tell.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That was awesome. And we'll see you next month.
The All Booked podcast is written, directed, and hosted by Justin, Rosa, Ashley, and Brittin, and produced and edited by Olivia Esteban. All Booked is produced by the Ridgewood Public Library. Please consider subscribing and sharing with friends, and follow us on Facebook. You can find links to the books we talked about today in the description. Thanks for listening, and keep reading.